Hi, I'm Underbelly, and you suck at mixing. In today's lesson, we're going to learn how to establish the relative volumes of all of our tracks. Let's get started. Okay, so check it. In our previous video, we bounced out all the individual tracks of our song to audio and placed them in this live set you see here. Now, you'll notice here I have a series of color-coded sausages, all of equal length and girth, so that no one feels inadequate. Now, here's the thing. I've color-coded these sausages to roughly match the instrument groups I think they belong in. So, yellow for drums, blue for bass, purp for synths, and so on. Now, within each group, if we open these up, I've also placed the elements happening towards the beginning of the track at the top and the elements happening later at the bottom. Now, this organizational process is boring and tedious, but judging based off of the rest of your life, it's not a problem for you. Now, here's the thing. After we've finished organizing, it's time to start establishing the relative volumes of our tracks. Now, because we've normalized all these, if I were to press play on this, it would sound like this. Oh, shit! Okay, it's a little abrasive. Everything's clipping like crazy because everything's as loud as it can be without clipping by itself. So what that forces us to do is actually reestablish the relative volumes from scratch. Now, the advantage to this is the second time around, we can do this much more methodically and carefully than we could have dreamed of in the writing phase. And it also forces us to reckon with elements that we might have buried in our mix, just like the memories I've buried from my childhood. To begin, let's go ahead and select all these tracks and bring all the volumes down to minus infinity. Now, when we're establishing the relative volumes of our tracks, it's important to start with your most primary elements first and then slowly work our way out to the secondary and tertiary elements. For me, and probably 90% of you, the loudest, most primary element of my track is going to be the kick. Now, because we're bringing up the kick first, it doesn't really matter where we're setting the volume of it, as long as it's well below enough 0 dB so that once we add everything else, we don't start clipping like crazy. A safe position for this is probably, say, minus 12, which sounds like this. Okay, just a sweet pumping in my ear holes. Now that we have the kick going, let's go ahead and bring up, say the snare. And I'm going to go ahead and do that in the session view over here because the faders here can be extended out to be nice and large, very precise. When I'm bringing up the snare, I'm going to slowly bring it up from minus infinity, and I'm going to try and look away from my computer screen and just focus on the sound coming in my ear holes. So let's go ahead and slowly bring that up. I'm looking away. Oh, maybe a bit too loud there. Somewhere around there. Okay, beautiful. Now let's go ahead and bring up the next element in the group. I would say my small snare. Let's see. Okay, once again, very slowly, looking away from the comp. Somewhere up. Maybe around there. Okay. Now here's the thing. I could move on to my hi-hat, but I could also move on to the next most primary instrument overall in the track, which would probably be my bass. However, I tend to like to establish the relative volumes of the instruments within a group first before moving on to the next one. So let's go ahead and add the next snare here. I believe it's the doshi snare. Oh, just somewhere around there. We don't have to be perfect with this process, just close enough so that the mix is sitting nice and tight. Now let's bring up the next element quite slowly. Somewhere around there, maybe. Wowzers. Oh, where'd everything go? Oh, shit. So you saw there that everything kind of dropped out for a second, kind of a killjoy. Probably best to loop a specific section of the track so we can just focus on it and not worry about any of the elements going away like my parents did. So let's go ahead and bring up, say, the hi-hat. Okay, very exciting. Okay, that was very good. Maybe a little bit lower. On to the next hi-hat. Okay, very good. All right, so there's definitely more elements in my drum group that I could bring in, but just for the sake of time, let's go ahead and move on to, say, my bass. Here we have the low bass. It's probably the most primary element of this group, so I'm actually going to focus on that first. Where's that fat bastard? There it is. Okay, let's bring that in. Okay. Now, here's the thing. I've noticed that that bass, while I was bringing it in, kind of sounds like ass. It probably needs some EQ and compression. But here's the thing. I'm not really there in my mixdown process yet. I'm still working on the relative volumes of my tracks. So perhaps I can write a mental note to myself, fix ass bass for later. So that's why you should always mix with a writing utensil, either digital, physical, by your side, so that you can write these notes to yourself to tackle for later when you're ready in the mixdown process. And that's basically it. Just kind of go down the line, establish the relative volumes, and wowzers. Okay, so check it. In next week's lesson, we're going to learn all about the stereo field of our mix. Be sure to subscribe and hit the bell button so you don't miss it, you dingus. Also, be sure to join my Discord so your mixdown can get roasted by hundreds of other producers from around the world. I'm Underbelly. Have a great day.